Tapelo, good afternoon to you. Thank you very much for joining us. So why would the UDM's membership have increased? Is it perhaps a backlash against the DA?
Look, I think the long policy of the UDF around coalitions, around collaborations with a number of other opposition parties have obviously yielded them the seat in governance at the Nelson Mandela Metropolitan City. So I think in terms of that, they've had a foothold in that particular city, and I think that is why you would see the membership numbers increasing. Obviously, with regards to the stadium, I think 7,000 for that particular part of South Africa is quite a number for the UDM. But I think this is part of the evolving historical policy for the UDM in terms of building coalitions there. So I think that's a foothold for them in that area.
Speaking of the coalitions there, Bantu Holomisa addressed that head-on, saying that coalition governments should be regulated, that partners must iron out relationships directly after the elections. There should be standards to measure a coalition government's performance. So we know how it went with the DA and Nelson Mandela Bay. These calls that the UDM are making, are they prudent?
Look, it's not new for the UDM to make these calls. The UDM has been making these calls for quite a number of years. I think they've been outside, or the president of the party has been outside of the ANC for a number of years. I mean, the party has also been in existence for 20 years roughly. So in terms of when you look at the other opposition parties, this is the one party that has stuck it out. Whether you look at the Ahang, whether you look at the other formations like COPE that have come after quite recently actually, this UDM has managed to be an opposition party for quite a long time. So I think this is not new. I think this is the mainstay of the political party. This is what's going to make it have the sort of national, I think, traction that it already has. I don't think as yet they're able to sort of build properly the foothold that it does at local government level. At the national and provincial level, they do. And that's why I think that they're going to hedge their bets around that sort of framing for them.
It's a relatively small party. The Bantu Holomisa spoke about what the party's achieved, mentioning, for example, the call for former President Jacob Zuma to step down and the vote by secret ballot to have Zuma removed. But what has it really achieved aside from its presence in Nelson Mandela Bay?
Look, I mean, some of the achievements, and obviously you can't speak about the achievements of the UDM outside of the other opposition parties. You have to look at the issue of the floor crossing that had happened some years ago between political parties at national parliament. They were part of the voices that were against the floor crossing. They were part of also the chorus against the need to have the public protector's recommendations taken seriously. Also, they were part of the chorus against Pansin Tlakula at the time, who was head of the IEC, and the issues around the leasing of a private property there. So I think the voice has been quite important, obviously, in opposition benches. And if you look again, given the longevity of the party, I think Bantu Holomisa has acted as some sort of an uncle figure for a lot of opposition parties. So I think they've definitely been able to, as much as they're small, they've definitely been able to carve themselves as an important face for opposition politics. That is why, I guess, part of the mainstay and part of the emphasis will be coalitions, will be multi-party democracy.
So it spoke about state capture, blaming the ANC, saying the ruling party is responsible for what's happening at Eskom. So plenty of criticism for the ANC. Do they not perhaps in that sense sound a little bit like the DA, just going in opposition to the ANC?
Look, I think obviously quite a lot of issues that are happening in Eskom are as a result of the mismanagement and so forth. And of course, you can also importantly blame it on the political principles. I don't think that opposition parties should move away from, ensuring that political principles are accountable to their constituencies. And in this respect, I think part of the problem at Eskom has been political. So I think obviously Holomisa has been quite direct to look at that issue around. But here's been the problems of Eskom, and part of those problems largely has been the ANC. So it's not a matter of whether are they deviating from the DA. Again, it's also important to look at the role that he plays, that the UDM president plays. One of that is to make sure that the opposition benches have a cohesive voice, making sure that they're able to manage differences among themselves and they're able to find themselves in that critique or opposition towards the governing ANC.
As a very small party at this point on a national level, how can the UDM differentiate itself and woo more voters?
Yeah, that's going to be a tough one. Look, you have on the one side the EFF, you have on the other side the DA, and you have on this other end, or sort of resurrected in a sense, at least in the public political imagination, a resurrected ANC. And obviously, there's in a sense, given the legitimacy of promise, the issues around a renewed hope. You've got an emerging strong ANC. So I think it's going to be quite difficult. There's also a need on the one part for an EFF voice to make sure that part of the objectives of the ANC are also carried out. So in that sense, I think it's going to be quite difficult, but it does have a foothold again at Nelson Mandela Metro, and it does have a foothold at national and provincial government levels, particularly at the legislative levels. So I do think there is space for it, given again its celebration of multi-party democracy. There is space for it for oppositional politics, but I think importantly there's space for it to create a cohesive voice for a number of opposition benches there.
That's analyst Tapelo Tselapi speaking to us there about the UDM manifesto launch. Thanks for your time.